Alvin Patrick, thank you for that too kind introduction. I am glad that my basketball prowess has finally been recognized. That means a lot to me, and my two brothers, high school football coaches, both of whom died too early, would be very proud that you chose that emphasis. So thank you. Thanks to the entire Marist community, the staff, the faculty, the students, the trustees, everyone who took part in creating such wonderful events. What musical talent you have at Marist College. What incredible tour guides. We came yesterday from various parts of the country, but we came together in a reunion of the entire senior staff who worked with Kevin when he was at Amherst. We're all here. And we were given a tour by Grace. It was for her like herding cats. I don't think she would admit it. But we were so glad to see Kevin and to see one another that we had a hard time following her backward movements. But what I want to say to you is how extraordinarily beautiful the siting of this college is on the river, how incredible the campus facilities, how amazingly well they've been maintained. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like it. And when these various magazines rank the country's most beautiful campuses, I'm not sure why Marist doesn't show up always in #1. Since my retirement from Amherst College at the end of July, I've been reflecting on the different institutions that I've served. And I do this out of annoyance about ranking systems and the fact that they tend to think and make it seem as though higher education can be generalized, that it's just one set of homogeneous institutions they can rank. This annoys me. I have loved every institution that I studied at and that I've served. Cornell with its devotion to any person, any study. UW-Madison, where until recently the strongest commitment to academic freedom was memorialized in a famous plaque that celebrated the fearless sifting and winnowing through which alone the truth can be sought. I loved Amherst, its founding vision, its commitment to indigent young men of piety, very similar to the beginnings of Marist College. What a distinctive jewel of a college Marist is. Its built environment is not only beautiful, but it seems planned to highlight the river and its surrounds. Cited here so that the college could be and remain engaged with the cultural riches, the natural beauty, the businesses, and the industries of the Hudson Valley, even as they all change over time. Marist has long done a lot of things that a lot of colleges are now rushing to do. Promoted and fostered connections across boundaries, taken an international perspective at its origins, fostered a residential study opportunity abroad, one of its own at the heart of Florence, Italy. And I noted with interest that your new president hadn't been here a year before he decided he needed to visit that one. For all of the connections that Marist makes, really unusual connections, in order to create pathways to careers for its students, I admire the fact that you have continued to make the liberal arts a required core for your students, celebrating curiosity-driven learning, joining it to forms of learning that many view as outside the bounds of the liberal arts. but you have made the connections and brought to your students the facilities that allow them to explore opportunities much earlier than students at many other places. The only thing I can say about Marist that I could hold against you is that you red foxes stole my friend, my colleague, my close advisor, and my chief financial and administrative officer from Amherst. I still remember how I felt when Kevin first told me he was a finalist for the Marist presidency. I've studied the place very carefully, he said, and I really like what I see. I think it would be a good fit. And I'm really interested, he said, in your advice and your thinking. I remember thinking, really? Now, I knew at the end of that call that if Marist offered Kevin the presidency, he would take it. I know that he still felt that he would need to think a lot about it and that it would be a hard decision. And I had challenged myself to keep Kevin when other suitors had come searching for him in the past. But this time it felt different just from the conversation, just from his tone. And you have gotten a gift. You chose a wonderful human being and an incredible talent. Before Kevin was hired at Amherst, I had never worked with a chief financial officer of his quality, someone who came with his combination of broad interests and forms of expertise, someone who was so evidently humble and such a wonderful human being. His forms of expertise are so wide-ranging, certainly in finance, in computation and data-driven analysis, but he combines those with an appreciation of the imaginative arts and the rigorous reading and analytic methods of the humanities. And that is what students and the rest of the world need, all of that. His creativity and the creativity of the team he built in budget and finance allowed us, during his time there, to complete a new science center, 4 new residence halls, a new event space for students, a redesign of the eastern part of our campus. We increased the size of the faculty. We increased funding for lower income students. We increased the diversity so that Amherst is now a majority minority student body. And we made it through COVID. We made it through COVID in part because I asked Kevin and he agreed to lead the 2 committees charged with developing health policy and developing proposals for the implementation of those policies. Kevin is a great writer and an editor. I don't think I wrote a single statement or a response to a crisis that I didn't run by him for his comments. Not just the usual kind of editing, but because Kevin would be able to figure out whether I had missed the mark, including missing what he knew probably was my own mark. Early on, our advancement staff, our trustees and I realized that Kevin would be invaluable to our fundraising efforts. Why? Because of his broad interests and because he can talk about budgets and financial models with incredible knowledge and precision, but he connects them all to the core priorities of higher education. And he does so in a way that builds trust and excitement among alumni and donors. In addition to all of his other qualities, you will see that Kevin's steadiness and his positive outlook make him an ideal person to lead. Now, some of you, but probably not all of you, know that Kevin completed his PhD in history while serving as Chief Financial Officer and Chief Administrative Officer, doing all the things that I just listed. This will never cease to amaze me. At one point early in his tenure, he told me he might need some leave time in order to finish the dissertation, a major study of the history and consequences of the city of Denver's unplanned growth. I don't think he ever even took time off. If he did, it was not noticeable. But he completed and defended his dissertation, and in true Kevin fashion, he did all that and even went to receive his PhD degree without enough fanfare for us to even know exactly when it was happening. That is his humility. I think I surprised him when I asked for a copy of the dissertation, and I shocked him when I read it. The reading is quintessential Kevin, clear, informative, critical in the best sense, analytically sharp, probing, maybe with a hint of regret at the consequences of unplanned growth, and not only in Denver, but aimed always at documenting, explaining, and understanding. That Kevin would become a college president seemed inevitable to me, as unusual as the path is, and that you saw the light is a testament to you as a college and a college leadership. How good that Kevin and his family, that he and Beth in particular, will be in such a beautiful spot at such a gorgeous college. They are very outdoorsy. They bike, they hike, they climb, they race, they enter marathons and half marathons, competitions, the names of which I'm sorry I don't really know, but you could ask Kevin. They play hockey, Brooke and Alex. I've learned that Alex, at least, has become a fly fisherman. I consider that a very appropriate application of his English and philosophy majors. Summer before last, I discovered that Kevin might not be the outdoorsman I thought he was. He told me he was going to be camping out on a weekend by himself around his birthday. I was shopping at EMS and decided to buy him some protein bars. Why? I don't know. I just thought I would. And I imagined Kevin out in the woods. I knew it was going to pour rain that weekend because I have a strange habit of looking at the weather. I don't know why, not necessarily from my own location, but just looking. And I imagined Kevin out there in the torrents of rain withstanding it all. It was some time later, and maybe from Beth, that I learned he had come home immediately when it started to rain. And he seemed to get a bigger kick out of that than I did, actually. Kevin knows a lot about a lot of things, so be careful. He knows a lot about craft beer, and it made him and David Hamilton, our chief information officer, very happy that he was moving to the Hudson Valley. I don't know anything about craft beer. I grew up in a family that drank Pabst Blue Ribbon out of salted aluminum cans. I had no idea what it meant. And in my ignorance, I told him I knew of a great beer that he would love. And our mutual friend Lisa Rutherford brought it to me from Wisconsin, the only place where you can buy it. It's called Spotted Cow, for the obvious reason. I saved it for Kevin, and I brought it out to him at a senior staff dinner. I waited for him to take a sip and exclaim how good it was. He said nothing. I got nothing. Finally, I looked at him and I said, "What do you think, Kevin?" Candid Kevin responded by saying, "It's okay." I knew this was Kevin saying, "You gotta be kidding me, Biddy." The best evidence for his humor and the humor that his family exhibits is their holiday letter. The only holiday letter at which I have laughed throughout, ever. Kevin is truly a connector of fields, professions, opportunities, and people. What we see here today is evidence of that there are so many people here from various parts of his life, so many alone from Amherst, not only his colleagues, but also trustees. that there are so many chief financial officers from so many different colleges and universities who are here to celebrate him. That there are so many friends, rowdy ones, he tells me, who are here from various parts of his life, from his college days and beyond. This wonderful person, Kevin Weinman, is now president of a college that values its connections to the things he values, the land on which it was built, the history of which it is part, the arts, the music, the food, the beer, the business communities beyond its campus. This is a difficult time for higher education because it is a difficult time for the country, divided as we are, plagued by doubt and suspicion of one another, long isolated from one another by COVID, and lacking faith in our democratic institutions, including our educational institutions. The ravages of the threats that COVID posed and the losses it created, along with the threats to democracy, occupy us all, I'm sure, and it will take a long time to understand the effects as well as the causes of that lack of trust. COVID taught us that it was possible to innovate remarkably with online learning. COVID also taught us how much we need each other, how much our physical presence to one another matters, how much social and emotional as well as academic learning can be lost when we're isolated and alone. We have a lot of work to do, all of us, to make up for those losses, including the losses of so many human beings over the past several years. That makes celebrations like today all the more important. It reminds us, among other things, that colleges bring people together. They give us a sense of shared purpose across generations and across institutions when we're not worrying about the rankings. The writer Marilynne Robinson has argued that college and university alumni communities are among the only such communities left in the country, and I think she's right. She says about college and university communities that they're one of the few such communities where people 5 to 6 decades out from their graduation treat current students as though they were kin and heirs. And that is true. And at Amherst, it's not only the alumni who treat current students as kin and heirs, it's also those people who may not have graduated from Marist, but who recognize how valuable it is. I feel fortunate to have been asked to speak. I feel lucky to be in this beautiful place with all of you to celebrate a wonderful human being, someone I know will be a wonderful president, and a remarkable college community. Thank you very much.